co-creator of When Calls the Heart Ryan, Bird stated that there had been good conversations regarding the Full House. Olam's potential comeback during a recent interview on the Heart to Hardy's podcast. Lori Land's relationship with the Cabler was severed over the college admission scandal, and it looked for a while that the actress would never work on a Hallmark production again. She lost her role in the Garage Sale Mysteries movies, which included mysteries that were finished but not yet televised, and was cut from When Calls the Heart episode that were scheduled to air at the time. You may remember that Loughlin and her husband, Massimo Giannelli, entered guilty pleas to conspiracy charges in order to get their 2 children admitted to the University of Southern California. The former cast member of Full House was sentenced to 2 months in prison, a fine of $150,000, and 150 hours of community service. Massimo was sentenced to 5 months in prison, a $250,000 fine, and 250 hours of community service. After serving time in jail, Loughlin has been gradually returning to the stage. She first appeared on GAC Families when Hope calls as Abigail Stanton. It has now surfaced that discussions have been held regarding Loughlin returning to her role as Abigail Stanton in When Calls the Heart on Hallmark. The revelation comes as a bit of a surprise because Hallmark usually steers clear of actors with a history of scandal, but Loughlin appears prepared to take on one of her most recognizable roles after making her due. We know you watched the season 10 final When Calls the Heart, therefore you are aware of how the possibility of a return has been raised because of his involvement with the mining business he worked for, which resulted in the deaths of numerous Coal Valley miners. Henry Gale has been the town's never-do-well from the beginning of the series. He has had an amazing plot arc, truly one of the greatest in the entire series. Once Henry earned the reputation of being a nasty man, he embraced it wholeheartedly and tended to make horrible decisions whenever he could. However, Henry made some poor decisions in the name of progress, and he was eventually pardoned by others when he had the chance to blow up a mine before it was put back into operation. Even though his actions weren't illegal, they made sure that the same individuals who caused the last mining tragedy couldn't happen again. Henry hasn't been able to forgive himself. Despite this, Henry eventually allowed himself the grace of forgiveness after a protracted and difficult process in which the residents of Hope Valley cooperated to show in the light of his acts and what a corner he had turned. Henry's favorites were Abigail and Elizabeth. Despite there was no screen time for Abigail, Henry fell in love with her. When Calls the Heart Season 10, Episode 12 shows us that Henry left Hope Valley to look for Abigail before, but this time he did so with a healed soul. That is major. When fans saw Adele's name prominently written on her mailbox, they started to worry if Lan would actually be returning. We now have opinions on the matter from a non-fandom source. Co-creator of When Calls the Heart, Brian Bird, revealed on a Heart to Hardy's podcast that there had been good conversations regarding Lynn making a return. Well, this is a tricky question, and what I can say is that there are good conversations happening, he replied. We can't guarantee anything, but there are good conversations happening around this topic regarding Loughlin's current state of affairs. He stated that the former student is doing really good. She's assured us that she has found some peace, and she's made through her ordeal, her and her husband's ordeal, and she's in a much better place than she was. He continued, our attitude always has been, as the producing team around, the writing team around When Calls the Heart, that what better plays for second chances than Hope Valley, he stated. Therefore, it on to function in theory. Right, again, we can't promise it in full, but we're working toward it. Although Lynn left When Calls the Heart, fans have been begging for more Abigail Stanton since her brief appearance on an Hope Calls. The course of the show would change if Abigail returned, but she did. At least she would have some interesting material to work with, since season 11 of When Calls the Heart is currently under development. Its comeback shouldn't be too far off.
English vai. É interessante ter texto na rua das bichas da নেট নাই
নেট স্পিড
কয়টা ডাউনলোড দিছো
চারটা ডাউনলোড দিয়ে দেখে ব্রাউজিং করা যাবে না, এটা কোনো কথা? কোন দেয়া বকো আন্দাজে বকো, কোন দেয়া গাওয়া কি নেট দিছেন আপনারা? নেট চলে না। কোন দেয়া কও তুমি না?
আপনি
হ্যাঁ
বলবো আপনাকে ট্রায়াঙ্গেল থেকে ফোন দিচ্ছে হচ্ছে পরে আমাকে বলবো ট্রায়াঙ্গেলের সাথে কথা বলতে চান তাহলে এখনই 09 চাপুন পরে 9 চাপুন পরে সমস্যার কথা করবো তো নেট তো ঠিকই আছে, নেট তো ঠিকই আছে, এই যে চলতেছে
আমাদের মুখস্থ হয়ে গেছে গা।
অবস্থা হয়ে গেছে আপনার না উনি